Hello guys, good morning, good evening, depending wherever you are watching me on the globe. Today we are just going to revise a paper here. We are going to answer some questions here in as far as biology is concerned. Form 4 biology is concerned. This is the syllabus of the Kenya National, this is the syllabus of Kenya, and this is the paper for the Kenya National Examination Council, Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education, and this is the biology theory. So we are going to go through this paper. I am going to ask you some questions so that you'll be able to, we go through it, and we shall go through it later. But today I'm just going to ask you some questions so that you can be able to answer. This is the Applied Science College channel. Welcome back to my channel after a long period of time. So I'm just going to take you through the paper so that you can be able to answer some of these questions, especially for the candidates for next year. Because for the Form 4 this year, they have already completed the exams, and we will be able to now start preparing the Form 3s, who will be able to join Form 4 next year. So let me just take you through this paper as we continue refreshing our minds. And this is the introductory part of biology in Applied Science College. So welcome. So let me just open the paper so that you can be able to see it. So we are just going direct to the questions. And the first question, it is 40 marks in section A. So you are required to answer all questions in this section in the spaces provided. The following diagram represents a section of a mammalian respiratory system, and you are asked to name those parts. For example, we have part E, part F, and part G, and then also we have the other side. You have been labeled as the lung. So question 1, the following diagram represents a section of mammalian respiratory system. So you have been requested to identify identify 1, Roman 1, the region of mammalian skeleton where represented section is found. So you're supposed to answer that. And then you are also asked to identify the part labeled F. Identify the part labeled F, as you can see in that diagram. And then you are also requested to explain the function of part labeled F. This part here. That part labeled F, what is its function in as far as the respiratory system is concerned? And then you are also asked to explain the function of part labeled F. Explain the function of the part labeled F. Yes, and then you are also requested to answer D, whereby you are supposed to give the similarities between the part labeled G and the gill filaments. You are requested to give the similarities between the part labeled G and the gill filaments. Then there is also another question here. We are still just on section A. You are requested number 2. Let us just go through. An investigation data on students, being students' height and blood groups, were collected and presented in the graph H and J as shown. So you can see on the x-axis we have the height of students and also the number of students. Then on the other side we also have number of students on the y-axis and the blood groups on the x-axis. So we have A, B, O, and AB. And then you have been told to state the type of variation illustrated by the graph H. And then also, that is A A, Roman 1, state the type of variation illustrated by graph H. Then we also have Roman 2, give the reasons of answer in A, 2A, Roman 1. Then B, explain the advantage of having the greatest proportions of students with blood group O as illustrated in the graph. Explain the advantage of having the greatest portion of students with the blood group O as illustrated in the graph. Then we have C. Remember, we are still just on 2, up there, question 2. Then we also have C. After the investigation, a student of blood group O reported that the father and mother are blood group A and B respectively. Use the genetic cross to illustrate the possibility. That question is 4 marks. That question is 4 marks. So we are still moving on. Question 3. Question 3 asks, in an experiment, students soaked maize seeds in water for 48 hours at a room temperature and tested them for reducing sugars. In an experiment, students soaked maize seeds in water for 48 hours at a room temperature and tested them for reducing sugars. So, A, name the reagent the students used to test the reducing sugars. A, name the reagent the students used to test for reducing sugars. That one is A. And then B, explain the reason for soaking the seeds. Explain the reasons for soaking the seeds. And then C, state the observation made by the students during the food test. State the observation made by the students during the food test. And then we also have D, explain the effect of soaking the seeds in hot water in the food test results. Explain the effect of soaking the seeds in hot water in the food test results. Then we also have a sample of maize seeds were planted in soils with favorable conditions and failed to germinate. Suggest the possible causes of this failure. A sample of maize seeds were planted in soils with favorable conditions but failed to germinate. Suggest the possible causes of this failure. That is question 3. We are through with question 3. Now we are going for question 4. This is now question 4. As you can see, there is a diagram there. So question 4 states this. An investigation, students planted dry cobalt chloride paper on both sides of mesophytes and leaf mesophytes leaf and covered the strips with sellotape as shown in the following experiments. Experimental setup. As you can see, there is some plant there, then there is a support, and then there is a slide, and then we have the cobalt chloride paper. You know the function of the cobalt chloride paper. We shall discuss it in the further discussion when we shall be answering those questions, but as per now, you can be able to go through those questions. And then A, state the aim of the experiment. State the aim of the experiment. Then B, state the observation the students made on the cobalt chloride paper. That is just only 1 mark. as you can see there. And then Roman 2, that is B, we are still just on the question 4. Roman 2, account for the difference in the time taken for the observation to be made on the 2 cobalt chloride papers. Account for the difference in the time taken for the observation to be made on the cobalt chloride, on the 2 cobalt 2 chloride papers. C, suggest 2 modifications students would make on the setup to have the observations made within a shorter time. Suggest 2 modifications students would make on the setup to have the observations made within the shorter time. Now we are through with the question 4. The following diagram, question 5, the following diagram represents the structure of the eye. The following diagram, this diagram, represents the structure of the eye. The following diagram represents the structure of the eye. As you can see, there is K, there is also L, M, and then the lens, then the optic nerve, and then the retina. Then you have been told, A, name the part labeled M. Name the part labeled M, as you can see. And then you have been told also B, explain the adaptations of the part labeled L to its function. You have been also told to explain the adaptations of the part labeled L to its function. That is, and then we also have C, describe the events initiated in the part labeled K to enable the distance object to be clearly seen. Those are 3 marks. Describe the events initiated in the part labeled K to enable a distant object to be clearly seen. 3 marks. State the role of the tears in the human eye. D, state the role of the human tears in the human eye. 2 marks. So you are expected there to give 2 roles, so that each role is supposed to be 1 mark, 1 mark. Now we are going on the section B. Section B, it carries 40 marks. And then you have been instructed to answer question 6, which is compulsory, and either question 7 or 8 in the spaces provided after question 8. So, and the question reads, because this question you are supposed just, it is compulsory for you to answer it, this question here. I think it is question 6. So during the ecological study, students obtain the following data from a certain ecosystem. So we had the following data that was collected in a certain ecosystem. During the ecological study, students obtained the following data from a certain ecosystem. Trophic level of organisms. We had producers, then the number of organisms were 1,000, primary consumers 200, and then we also have secondary consumers 30, tertiary consumers were 4. Use the data in the table to draw a pyramid of numbers in the grid provided. So you have been told to represent your data in the table. To represent your data in the table. So use the data in the table to draw a pyramid of numbers on the grid provided. So that is the graph. As you can see it. So we shall be able to answer all those questions. We shall be able to answer them. And then we have been asked to account B. Let me just put it clearly. Account for the shape of the pyramid. Those ones are 3 marks. Account for the shape of the pyramid. And then C, if the following organisms were found in the ecosystem represented by the data: eagle, plant, snake, and mouse. Draw a food chain to illustrate the feeding relationship in the ecosystem. Draw if the following, let me just repeat the question again. If the following organisms were found in the ecosystem represented by the data: A, eagle, plant, snake, and mouse. Draw the food chain to illustrate the feeding relationship in the ecosystem. So number 2, Roman 2, which of the organisms will have the least biomass? Which of the organisms will have the least biomass? And then 3, explain the effect of severe drought on the population of organisms in the ecosystem. 3 marks. Explain the effect of drought in the population of organisms in the ecosystem. Then we have Roman 4. How would predation by snakes lead to the emergence of new species of mice in the ecosystem? How will the predation by snakes lead to the emergence of new species of mice in the ecosystem? 3 marks. So, remember that question you have been told it's compulsory, you must answer it. But now, for question 7 and 8, you will be able either to choose. So, D, describe the method one would use to estimate the population of a particular plant species in the ecosystem. 4 marks. Describe the method one would use to explain the population of a particular plant species in the ecosystem. A, describe the various functions of lipids in the human body. Describe the various functions of lipids in the human body. 10 marks. So those ones are easy questions. So if you describe, you make sure that you describe, and as you are giving the examples, you are supposed to give examples that you are sure of. So those ones are 10 marks. So you are supposed to explain as like 10 functions of lipids in the human body for you to give you more marks, chances of passing. B, describe how the process of photosynthesis occurs in green plants. 10 marks. Describe how the process of photosynthesis occurs in the green plants. And then I have question 8, which is last but not least. You are supposed to describe how the functions of human digestive system from the mouth to the stomach is adapted to its function. You are supposed to describe how the section of the human digestive system from the mouth to the stomach is adapted to its function. So I think that one, and then this is the spaces that you are provided for to answer those questions. That one has come to the end of my virtual practical class. Today I was presenting to you biology paper, and this paper, it is supposed to take 2 hours, exactly 2 hours, because it's a theory paper. And make sure that you, before you start answering any questions, you are supposed to go through the whole paper, and you have a concentrated mind, and make sure you are focused. And when you start answering those questions, you are supposed to have sober-minded and you have revised thoroughly. Remember, biology, it's a very strict subject that when it comes to marking, one spelling, it means a lot. Just messing up with one spelling mistake, it can just bring down. You will fail all the your explanation because it is very strict. So this is for the examiner's use. This is how the marks are distributed. In section A, question 1, the maximum score that you are supposed to score, they are 8 marks. And then question 2, the maximum score that you're supposed also to score, they are also 8 marks. And then question 3, the maximum marks that you're supposed to score, they are also 8 marks. And then question 4, the maximum questions that you're supposed also to score it 8 marks. Question 5, 8 marks. Question 6, 20. And then either of the section, either you decided to do question 7 or question 8, 20 marks, giving the total of 80 marks. Otherwise, stay tuned and we shall come to you with more questions in my channel. Remember to subscribe, to like, and also to share my channel. We shall be coming to you with more questions in as far as biology is concerned, physics is concerned, and even chemistry is concerned. I thank you for your cooperation, and we shall revise this paper very soon when we shall be able to come back on the studio. Otherwise, bye-bye, and give some comments below. Yeah, thank you, and bye-bye.